Welcome to episode number 13 of the Kevin Rooke Show. Today's a very special episode because it's the first episode with a brand new sponsor, Voltage. Voltage, if you are not familiar with them, is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. We'll share more about them later on in the show. But today's chat is actually with Voltage's CEO and founder, Krizek. In the conversation, we talk a lot about Lightning nodes today, some of the pain points people face while setting up Lightning nodes, how businesses are using Lightning nodes today, and what the future of the Lightning Network might look like. This is also a Lightning podcast. So if you have any questions throughout the episode at any point, open up a Lightning podcasting app. My favorite is Fountain. You can send sats, you can send messages, you can send your comments, questions, whatever it is, and I will answer everything at the end of the show in the Lightning round. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Graham, thanks for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Kevin. Excited to be here.
How about we start with a bit about your background? How do you get into Bitcoin? How did you decide you wanted to build on Lightning? And then why you decided to start Voltage?
Yeah, for sure. My education around Bitcoin really starts in about 2013. I just found out about it just researching through things that are kind of just like in some forums on the internet of just, new technology that was coming out. And I read about Bitcoin and I found it super fascinating from both the technology aspect of it as well as kind of the economic properties of it. Thought it was just fascinating. And it really intrigued my interest. And at that time, I think it was probably around like $5 or something. And I never really took it. I never really thought about it as like this, the global disruptor that it is today, and all of these things about it, being $40,000 and all of this stuff. I really just thought it was this like really cool peer-to-peer payment network. And even when the day that it got to $20, I think I told a friend, like, man, this stuff's getting really expensive. Like, I don't know if I need to be like messing around with this anymore. It's really kind of crazy how I think there's a lot of people in that boat of, in the early days we saw it as this awesome technology that enabled a lot of things, but maybe just didn't quite catch on of like, the true ramifications of the Bitcoin technology. But expanding on that, so I fell in love with it, but really kind of kept it as a hobby. I've spent most of my career being a software engineer, specifically in the kind of the public cloud space. I've worked for various, smaller startups as well as some larger companies, and really got an interesting take on kind of modern day infrastructure and how applications are developed and ran and deployed, and then kind of kept Bitcoin as a hobby through that process. And then it was like early 2020 when I started to look more into the Lightning Network, because I really wanted to kind of work in Bitcoin, but there wasn't a lot of jobs for what I was doing. There wasn't a lot of jobs kind of period. It was still a little niche at that time. And so I started looking, okay, like what's the next thing in Bitcoin? Like where is this system evolving? The very obvious answer was the Lightning Network. That was the thing that was, starting to come online and starting to become more and more popular, more and more. There's like mainnet deployments and things like that by that time. And so I started to play around with it and started to try and run a Lightning node at home. That became a very hard process. Like there's I don't even think any of the even node in the box things that are out today were out then. I was just trying to set up like L&D built from source on a Raspberry Pi, and it was just a really horrible process. Nothing worked, and that's kind of where I had the idea of like, man, there has to be like some kind of like service that offers like this. A hosting provider for this stuff, so I can just start using Lightning Network without having to worry about all of these things. And that really didn't exist. So that kind of like piqued my interest. Started to build out just in my free time what would be like the Voltage platform, and it just kind of took off from there and just never really stopped. And people were using it and liking it, and then one day I decided like, all right, let's do this for real, and kind of formalized it and built a company, and and that's where we're at today.
Nice. So you've had this experience from starting with like a horrible user experience, building your own node, trying to figure out how it all worked when none of this documentation existed really. It was just very hard to build. Now, fast forward to today, where it's much easier. How far do you think we are along that kind of user experience spectrum of like really hard to super easy, anyone can do it? Are we halfway there? Are we a quarter of the way there? 3/4?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that it depends on how you're using it and like kind of what angle you're coming at the Lightning Network from. When you think about some of the custodial wallet providers like Wallet of Satoshi and things like that, they work pretty well. If you're just trying to send a payment or whatever, I mean, they work well. And so if you are just trying to do a custodial payments service, I think that's fairly well solved. I'm sure there's some enhancements to do and whatnot, but those work really well. If you're thinking about coming at it from an enterprise business standpoint, where you're trying to set up robust production grade infrastructure that is going to be handling thousands of customers, doing lots of payments, yada yada yada, there's still a long ways to go on that front. There's still a lot of maturity to go through all implementations and all the tooling around it. Even the people that are doing the at-home things with Umbrels and MyNode and all of those services, there's still a decent amount of setup involved. There's still a decent amount of you have to manage your channel, set up all of those things. So if you're coming at it from the purely more self-sovereign or kind of mission critical side of things, there's still a lot of work to be done. And I see it. I kind of made this comparison at the Nashville Bitcoin meetup last week or so. That I see it. If you think about the early internet, where you got the internet through the phone lines, and you were playing an online video game, and if someone called your landline, your game would get disconnected because that call took up that piece. And it was it's thinking about that now. That's so crazy. It's that seems so silly. I see this almost kind of like that in the Lightning Network now, where I think one day there'll be you have to manage your channels, you have to do this and that, and so I think that there's still a lot of improvements to be done that will be coming along as the network progresses.
I like that analogy. So we're in kind of the dial-up phase of the internet where you can use it, but it's not great, and there's things that can be improved. Do you think that as we transition to the high speed or the fiber optic version of the internet, what does that look like for your business and for other kind of Lightning service providers, I guess? Is that where, will Voltage entirely automate the process then of balancing channels and making sure everything is working smoothly all the time? Or is this going to be something users take care of on their own? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of automation possibilities, both from Voltage and the implementations themselves and other service providers. So I think that there's a lot of optimizations in that area. I think that down the road, when you think about the high-speed internet version of the Lightning Network, I think that all of it could be automated away, and you don't. I think that the path that I envision it going is that you have as much control as you want. You could. In that world, you could set up your node on autopilot where it's doing all of the things by itself and working well, and you don't have to touch anything. But if you wanted to get in there and open a channel to a specific node for some reason, you can kind of go down that path and get your hands dirty. So that's the way I kind of imagine it playing out, where a lot of this stuff will be automated away, and you don't have to worry about these kind of little nuts and bolts of kind of what's going on under the hood. But I think that we'll still have the optionality to do that if you want to. That's kind of what I love about Bitcoin as a whole, and then Lightning Network and all of the things on top of it, is you have a lot of optionality across the whole path, right? Of whether when you think about even just on-chain Bitcoin, you can use a custodian or you can use some kind of provider to handle your Bitcoin and send and receive. Or if you didn't want to do that, you have the option to hold your keys yourself and transact yourself, do all those things. And it's kind of it goes along the spectrum of Lightning and everything like that. You can choose the bits and pieces where you want to take your risks and where you want to take custody into your own control. And so I see that evolving through the Lightning Network, where you will have the optionality to be as automated or as manual as you wanted it to be.
And through this evolution of Lightning nodes, do you also see new use cases for nodes coming to the fore? Right now, all we can kind of do, there's a few emerging applications that are more interesting than just payments, but one of the dominant ones today is just making payments and receiving payments. Are there going to be new things that people can do with their node over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think there's kind of a big debate in the community right now of how much do we put on the Lightning Network itself compared to doing it in other other channels and handling Lightning as just a payments layer. I'm kind of like in the middle of it, I guess, where I think that there are some new use cases that can come from Lightning, and I'm not. I think that a good analogy of like a bad idea is like streaming movies through the Lightning Network. Like that's kind of silly. That would never really work. And so I think that there's some opportunity still to add Lightning either natively on the Lightning Network as a peer-to-peer network, or being able to tie it in very closely with the Lightning Network, where you're maybe some services tied to like an HTLC being cleared or something, where the service is still out of band, but it has some ties into the network that can enable or disable services, things like that. So I think that there are a lot of use cases still to be discovered, and that's one of the great things that I like about what we do is we're kind of a service provider that allows people to build whatever they want to build. And so we get to see a lot of new use cases of people that are building, entirely new applications that don't exist on the Lightning Network today, or even just taking an old system that's, kind of working fine in the fiat world and incorporating Lightning into it to enable, a whole new set of users. And so I think that we get a really unique view of what's being built on the Lightning Network by where we sit in the stack, and being able to work with a lot of these companies that are building things that are brand new, or enable some new use case in existing technology.
I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners who either have never experienced the Lightning Network still, or maybe have but don't run their own node. If you were to pitch a Bitcoiner or a Bitcoin business, maybe someone who is familiar enough with the concept of Bitcoin but doesn't have their own Bitcoin or Lightning node, how would you pitch them? What are the kind of the selling points from your guys' perspective of what would you say to them to get them to set up a Lightning node?
Yeah, for sure. I always like to lead off as like there's nothing. Well, maybe there's just a few things that are more magical feeling than sending a payment on the Lightning Network on your own node. It's like the coolest feeling in the world, and so I want everyone to experience that feeling. But at a more practical standpoint, I think that if there's a person that's into Bitcoin and hasn't quite experienced the Lightning Network yet, I think that they understand a lot of the the importance of the Lightning Network and what it's made for, and the reasons to use it. And so I think it's just it's primarily opening the door to them, to showing them what's possible on the Lightning Network. Being able to either just send quickly and for very little fees, or enabling the applications like Zion and Sphinx Chat, or doing the podcasting 2.0 stuff. So I think that I really like to lead off with showing them what is possible on the network. Like some people think that, okay, Lightning is just for payments. Like it's only, I only hodl Bitcoin. I never send or receive, or whatever. And so I think that opening up the door to what else is possible besides just the payments really lets them kind of their mind start to think more critically about, why should I be running my own node, and why should I be participating in this network? And then I think from there it's they start to do their own research, and then come to the conclusion that they ultimately should, or at least I always kind of take the selling point of if you're a Bitcoiner, you probably fell down the rabbit hole and did all the research and understood why Bitcoin is important, all those things. You should do the same thing with Lightning. It's the next phase of Bitcoin, and so you should totally kind of take the second rabbit hole, right? Go down this whole other path of this Lightning Network and what's possible on it. And that's usually enough to get people interested. I mean, at the very least, running like a mobile wallet, like a Breeze or something. And then, I think over time they graduate into their own node.
Right. Do you think that there's going to come a time where people onboard to the Lightning Network, well, I guess maybe some do today already, but exclusively for routing versus using the interesting applications on Lightning? Because I get the impression right now that many people that I've talked to route payments, but they're not there just for routing. They're there because they need to run their own node, and then they realize they can make revenue on the side. Do you think there ever comes a time where people exclusively route payments, and then there's a segment that exclusively uses applications?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that definitely I see that as the path forward. And there's like some people that do it today. I think that the difficulty right now is to route. I mean, there's kind of the difference between like routing for like like a business standpoint of like trying to be profitable on your routing and things like that, or just hey, I just want to route some payments just for fun kind of thing. And I think that routing and earning serious money on routing is a really difficult process. It's not something that you can just we even get people coming to us saying, "Hey, I want to like route payments. I just want to set up a node and just start routing," and then assuming that it's like some Ethereum staking service or something where they're just going to start earning a return. And it's like it's really not that. You really have to take time and effort to figure out where is the traffic flowing across your node, and then optimize for those routes and do. It's way more hands-on as far as earning decent returns on routing. It's not something you can necessarily set it and forget it, and that's something that our support engineer Nate has written some decent blog posts on here recently that everyone should like check out on our blog. But he basically set up our voltage node that we've really just been set up for just payments to receive payments for our services. But we've been optimizing it more and deploying a lot more Bitcoin into it. To really kind of do another learning exercise of how do you route payments and what does the network like today. And he's been writing a blog post kind of through his journey. And it's been really interesting. It does kind of start out of just deploying channels out and then seeing where that traffic goes, and then kind of closing some channels, opening some new ones to effectively make sure that traffic is passing across your node, and then capturing a small amount of fees for that. So to answer your question more succinctly, I think that there definitely is the opportunity, for people that come to the Lightning Network just for routing. And I think that definitely does exist, but I think it's a pretty challenging thing to do today. I mean, to do it in a very good way and, to earn some decent returns on. But again, I think that there is maybe some optimization for that down the road. Like when we were talking about the high-speed internet stuff, I think that there could be tools and services that, are basically will like auto-tune your node to just enhance, like optimize for routing, and that's it. And then maybe it's way easier to do profitable routing at that point.
Yeah, because now the way you describe it, and my experience as well has been like you really do have to be like a hobbyist to kind of, and a really like you have to be engaged, you have to be hands-on, and you have to be like always monitoring your node if you want to successfully route payments, and even to some degree if you want to participate within the Lightning Network. Over time, do you think that Lightning nodes are going to be confined to this like hobbyist engaged population, or is it going to be something that anyone and everyone can access in the same way that anyone and everyone can put an internet router in their home and kind of just set it and forget it? It's there, and there's billions of them, but you don't think about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that that's a reality that we will move to, is kind of the second option that you mentioned there, of where it's it's just kind of set it and forget it, and you don't have to really worry about a lot of those a lot of the small details about running a node. And I think that that's definitely something that we're exploring as well. We get a lot of people that come to us that say, hey, we want to accept Lightning payments through BTC Pay server. How do we do that? And we kind of have to like coach them. Okay, like here's your channels. Here's like what a channel is. Here's how you set them up. You have to like make sure that this is right, that's right. And they're just like, oh no, forget it. I don't want to go through all of that work, which I really don't blame them for. And then they're just kind of forced into some custodial solution. And so I think that that's something that we're looking at, and I know that others are looking at too. Is like, how do we make this as easy as possible for the people that don't want to be that kind of maybe hardcore hobbyist that watches their node all the time and manages their channels. They just want to accept payments, or they just want to listen to a podcast and stream sats. They just want to do things that that isn't so hands-on and so in the weeds. And so I think that will be automated away, or there's things that can make that much easier. And we're trying to figure out the best way to bring that to market, I'm sure, as well as others are too.
Mm-hmm. And in the voltage business, you guys have individuals and kind of like retail audience, and then you also have businesses and enterprises. How do you think about where that focus is going to be over time for you guys? Are you shifting towards enterprises and helping them like accept payments, merchants accepting payments, or is it retail a retail focus?
I think that we'll definitely be moving towards. I mean, we kind of are, but focusing more on kind of the developer and like builder aspects of it. I think that really enabling the people that haven't either come up with an idea where they want to incorporate Lightning and really offer them the full toolkit to make that a reality, and then scaling that on up to large businesses that are doing production grade deployments that need a bunch of assurances and a lot of monitoring and things built in. So kind of taking that first step of the developer that just has this idea, giving them an easy toolkit to be able to create that, and then scaling it into the large deployments that you see today. And so for us, I think that we sort of, so in the last 12 months, I mean, we launched in October of 2020, and we kind of launched not really knowing exactly where the market's going to lead us. And we kind of, that's why we have a nodes as cheap as $10 a month up to professional nodes that are kind of custom made. And so we just kind of wanted to launch and see what the market has to say and what people need out there. And I think that there's a decent amount of individuals that use us that are maybe nomads or something that don't have they just kind of travel around. They don't have a place where they can plug in a node at home, and so they use us for things like that. And then we've definitely seen a good amount of adoption from the builders and the larger businesses as well. So I definitely see the market pulling us into the developer, into enterprise business end of things. And I think that that's where there's a huge amount of opportunity to build products there as well. I think that when you think about the technology stacks outside of Bitcoin and just general, applications and services, there's a tool for just about everything. There's ways to do, there's like 5 different ways to do anything that you want. And with Lightning, it's very, very limited. You have a very small set of tools. There's a lot of gaps in tooling as well. And there's very finite ways of doing things. And I think that that's a big problem in the network, is that when you see developers coming from outside of Bitcoin, wanting to write applications on the Lightning Network, they're hit with a lot of problems. There's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of friction points to get them up and running, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to make that easier for them. I think that that's frankly why some of the Ethereum services have beaten us in terms of developers writing applications for things like Ethereum compared to like Bitcoin and Lightning, is that there is a lot of tooling around the ecosystem. And I think that we need to bring that into Bitcoin. We need to make it just dead simple to start writing an app that incorporates Lightning and start sending and receiving payments or whatever it is. And so that's kind of the area that we're looking at over the next 12 months.
In your view, what are those friction points or kind of roadblocks that are most concerning today? Like what do we really need to fix to help Bitcoin developers build applications on Lightning?
Yeah, I think the one that I hear the most out of just people in the community is like just the liquidity management. So even if you're an expert node runner and you know what you're doing, it's just kind of a pain in the butt to manage your liquidity and make sure you have your channels in the right place and you're not failing payments, things like that. So I think in the liquidity management space, there's a lot of work to be done, and I know that there's several people working on those things. And then additionally, just there's a lot of the implementation. There's a lot of disparity between all of the different implementations and figuring out which one you should use when, and they all have different APIs. There's a lot of different ways to interact with them. And so kind of standardizing that, I think, would go a long way in creating, a consistent interface where you can, doesn't matter how many nodes you have or what nodes they are, or, any of those things. You just have a very, simple like API or service to be able to interact with them. I think that could go a long way as well. So I think that, the two that I would say most are liquidity management and then just the interfacing with the Lightning Network, whether it's through your implementation or otherwise, could use a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned the idea of like people running multiple nodes and managing between them. In what use case does developer need more than one node? Can you explain like why someone might opt for just picking one or having, dozens or hundreds of nodes? What are the kind of trade-offs there?
Yeah, it really depends on your use case, but I'll say that the reason why we usually recommend like several nodes for a customer that's doing like production deployments that is like a mission critical application that's using the Lightning Network, and that's for several reasons. One is a lot of the implementations today are not really written to run in a highly available way. And when for that's kind of a technical term of highly available, but it basically means if you can have multiple instances of a node, and if one component fails, it will fail over to a new one and continue running. The implementations are working on enhancing those features. I think that all three of them, there are four of them, the major ones, are all working on things like that. But I wouldn't say that it's quite there yet. So when you think about running a Lightning node, you have to do things like just version upgrades, or sometimes they crash, or you have to compact a database, or you have to do this and that where it brings your node offline. Well, if you have one node and you're trying to process payments or use it in your application, that means your application is offline for that amount of time to upgrade it or whatever you need to do. And so that's why we always recommend at least two nodes, is that you're able to either round robin or just use one as failover. So if you ever need to upgrade one, you still have a node there to process your payments. And so that's really the need to have more than one node. Is it's sort of with throughput too. If you're doing a really high amount of transactions, you can increase that by adding more nodes. But I would say it's more so on the highly available aspect of it, where if you have one node and it fails for whatever reason or it goes offline for whatever reason, your application or that piece of your application is down. And so it's really adding resiliency to where a node restart or something doesn't take down your whole application.
Right. Does it improve the way payments are routed as well? Like if you can get access to a different part of the network with another node, does that improve managing liquidity and those kinds of things too?
Yeah, definitely. And there's several ways to do that. You could have, like, say if you have two nodes and you can open up channels to kind of one part of the network or a specific group of people with one node and a different group of people with the other node, and then have some business logic in your application to know which node to use for which scenario. Or you could also just kind of open up channels, in any way on both of the nodes, and then just have retrying, where if you try on node A and the payment fails, just retry that payment on node B. It might add a little bit of time to someone sending a payment, but it would hopefully succeed on that second try. So it gives a greater success probability if you're able to try on a different node with a different set of routes.
Are you seeing any trends in payment successes on Lightning over time? Like, I imagine you guys have, between your node and then customer stuff, I imagine you get a pretty unique perspective on how payments are flowing through the network. Are you seeing higher payment success rates, higher payment volumes? What are you kind of seeing from your perspective?
Yeah, I've seen both. I've seen higher payment successes and higher volumes. When we first started, when I was really building the application, and say May of 2020, it was like you went to do a payment with the expectation that it was going to fail and you're going to have to retry a few times or something like that. And we've really moved away from that, where I'm actually surprised when a payment fails from like my node, or even withdrawing from River or any of the custodial platforms that integrate Lightning. It's very rare that I've actually had an error in sending a payment. That's obviously, it's hard to generalize that because every node is different. Every node is connected to, their own set of nodes, things like that. But in general, I've seen a very, very there's a large increase in the number of successful payments in my personal experience and from our customers. And it goes along with what I was just mentioning with, like, I think we're really learning about, okay, we should have two nodes instead of one so we can have a better probability of success when sending a payment. So I think that there's been a lot of learnings over the last several years of, okay, how are we going to do this to increase our chances of getting a successful payment? So I think that that's definitely there. And then, it's no lie, it's pretty obvious that the capacity in the Lightning Network has been increasing like pretty substantially over the last year. And I think that just increases with payment size too, where I think, with Wumbo, I can't remember when Wumbo came out in LND, where you can basically make bigger channels, and there was previously like a threshold of you couldn't go over the certain limit, and they increased it a lot. And I think it was maybe LND 012 or something. But with things like that, people are creating bigger channels, which has bigger capacity. Like the other, I think it was around Christmas time, I did, I think, 6 payments of like 100,000 sats each, like one after the other. And all went through, like no problem. And it was honestly surprising of like, wow, this is really starting to work and be more reliable than it previously has been. So to answer your question, I think that it's been great improvements in both size and success of payments.
How big do you think payments will be on Lightning? Like, how will we eventually, actually, maybe a way to frame this is like, there's like 3 or 4 main metrics people use for tracking growth of Lightning. Like they use public capacity growth, the channel growth, number of nodes. Do you think that the nodes and channels will outpace or underpace the growth of public capacity?
That's a good question. I think they've been fairly on track so far. That's a good question. I'm not sure how. I think that the capacity is going to like outpace nodes. I think that that's the thing about the not the problem, but the nuance with the number of nodes compared to the capacity on the Lightning Network is, the number of nodes, it's pretty easy now. I mean, it's pretty easy now, like through voltage and things like that, to spin up nodes. And a node might have 100,000 sats on it only, or there could be a single node that has 5 Bitcoin on it. And so I think that they're obviously very decorrelated in their. I think that through the last year they've been semi-correlated, but I think that's going to decouple over time, where there'll be a lot more capacity with less nodes being added, and I think that that's fine because of, like I said, of 2 nodes in the network aren't the same thing, right? There could be very different in capacity, and so I think that there will be a lot more capacity added with fewer nodes, just for the sake of people having more confidence in the Lightning Network and being able to deploy more money to it, having the assurances that this is going to be okay, and I'm not just going to lose my funds for some crazy problem that I encounter.
Right. And then so the second part of that would be, then if capacity and number of nodes are decoupling, does capacity and payment volume across Lightning also decouple? Like, do you think that the total volume of payments going through Lightning is going to exceed capacity then? The growth of capacity.
When you say that, you're thinking about like number of payments or size of payments?
Like value of payments, so total volume.
Yeah, I think that. Well, yeah, I think that those. I don't know if I'd say. I think that they would be coupled, and that they're, the more capacity that the network has, the more that you're able to send. Like the larger your payment size are, the more you're able to send as well. Because when you think about if I wanted to send you 1,000 payments that were only 5 sats each, well, that's still draining that channel, from me to you. And so eventually that payment channel is going to run out of liquidity on my side. And so, then I'm going to start having payment failure. So I think that even if we aren't thinking about bigger channels, just strictly more channels is good as well, because they'll, get drained less and less frequently. And so I think that the amount of capacity as it increases on the network will be correlated to the number of payments and the size of payments that happen. And I think additionally is something that is something that we have really no visibility into, which is a good thing, is that the whole private channels, private capacity of the network, and that if there was a large hedge fund that wanted to do automated trading through the Lightning Network that was like really, really quick, they probably aren't going to put, like, if they want to trade a Bitcoin on that, they're probably not going to open a public channel to that. They're probably going to do a private channel to like the exchange only, and then do that through that channel. And so I think that there's a ton of nuances with the Lightning Network, but I think that's an important one, that this is only public capacity, and private capacity is likely over time going to be far greater. Yeah.
Do you have any insight into how big private capacity might be in comparison to public? I know there was a report, I think BitMEX might have put it out a year or two ago, and it's often cited in the industry, but the data I think is from like January 2020. So curious to know if you have any perspective and thoughts on that.
Yeah, we really don't. I mean, like the nodes that we run, we don't really have much visibility into, and then especially on the private side of things, I don't have a lot of data comparing public to private. But something that I will say is Anthony Ronning, who's with Impervious, he published a blog post like kind of explaining how private channels work and how they're called private channels, but they're a better word for it is kind of unannounced channels where they aren't 100% private, like no one could find out. If you did enough probing through the network and the on-chain data, you could probably find channels. And so I think that he was interested in doing some probing to see just capacity of private channels, but I think that was just an idea, and I don't know if he's ever gone through the process of completing that.
But over time, do you think that then private capacity is going to outpace public capacity?
I think it could. I mean, I think it could. I think that as more and more things, like I talked about with trading or something, or even just two exchanges that just want a line of liquidity to each other, that just want to put a bunch of liquidity into Lightning, that's going to be a private channel. So I think if you're strictly talking about size of amount of Bitcoin on Lightning, I could definitely see private outpacing public.
Yeah. Has anything surprised you in the last year or so of watching Lightning's growth? This could be any kind of metric related thing or something you're seeing in Voltage's business, but like we just saw such tremendous growth in the last 12 months of Lightning. Did anything particular stick out to you as like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, or I didn't think this would happen so fast?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple things. I mean, something that I've been like really surprised by, but like in a very good way, is the how close the community is and how willing everyone is to work with each other. And I think that there's other industries maybe aren't like that, or people are more adversarial. But I think that a lot of the people that are building on the Lightning Network genuinely want to work together and really want to help each other, better their products and then better the network as a whole. So that's been a very good thing to see over the last year plus is the collaboration amongst a lot of different Lightning Network companies or services, and I think that that's definitely helping the adoption of Lightning. And then the other one was around like just being. I think that the payment successes was really like a big surprise for me how well that has increased over time, and then additionally just like people. The amount of people that are coming to build on it, and the amount of people that really think, like I guess, similar to I do, and that the Lightning Network is the long-term solution for this, rather than trying to like create your own coin or some shit coin or something like that. The amount of people that really get it with the Lightning Network and Bitcoin has been very great to see. And you think about people like Adam Curry, who's been big in the podcasting 2.0 and the value for value model. He came from just an outsider that was just, hey, I love podcasting. We need to figure out a way to get a more direct relationship between listener and host. And he came and he did his research and he found Bitcoin and Lightning Network, and it was the obvious case for him. So I think that people like that are building on Lightning and really get the value prop of Lightning and why other things are inferior. It's surprising that it happened that fast, but it's great to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely say for sure that I've had a number of people reach out, people interested in building on Lightning, don't know where to start. DMs getting all the time from people who are just kind of like in the ecosystem and want to learn how to build on Lightning. And then also I agree that the first point, I had Chris Tremont from Scarce City on last episode, and he talked about how, when you're building on Bitcoin, you kind of have this just massive community of everyone that just wants you to win. They're just like there to support. So I think that's a really, really interesting point. Now I want to talk a little bit more about Voltage specifically and Voltage's business. I know you guys recently launched a feature called Flow. Can you tell listeners a little bit about what that is and how it improves the experience for a Lightning node operator?
Yeah, for sure. So Flow is a product that it's a liquidity management tool, or it's a way to get liquidity to your Lightning node. So for those that aren't familiar, there's a product called Pool from Lightning Labs. And what that is it's a public not well, it's a public auction service where you can go and buy and sell liquidity from other nodes in the network. So you can essentially say, hey, I want a million sat channel. I'm willing to pay this much for it. And then someone on the other side could say, okay, I'm selling a million sat channel. This is what I'll take. And then you can get matched up. And then, a channel would open between you two. And so you can pay a small fee for essentially getting liquidity on the Lightning Network. There's some hurdles to using Pool. Just in the for new users, you already have to have a channel established to use Pool. You have to lock up funds for a certain amount of time to participate in the auction service. Things like that. There's just a few hurdles with it. So we created a flow to essentially make that process easier. And through Flow, you're able to use our UI or API to enter in, the size of channel you want, give it a few parameters of how long the channel should be opened and whatnot. And then just request a channel. You would just, easily pay the fee, and then you would get what's called a sidecar ticket, which is a piece of the Pool service. And then you could take that ticket and just go claim it on your node, and then you would get matched up in the auction service, and a channel would be open to you. So really, the benefits here are making it very easy to just say, hey, I need a million sat. I'm a store that needs to accept payments. I need like a million sats inbound to me. I'm just going to go submit an order, claim this ticket, and it's there. Same thing for brand new users. If you have a brand new node, one of the hardest things to do is, okay, where do I open channels to? How do I get inbound liquidity? Usually the solution for that right now is messaging people on Telegram saying, hey, who can open a channel to me? And so this is a way to automate that and make it way easier to just enter in the amount you want, pay an invoice, and then start receiving it. So it's really helped in just general liquidity management, but especially on onboarding of new users. And the great thing about this service is that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be running your node on Voltage to use it. You can claim your, this channel, the sidecar ticket on an Umbrel or a My node or a node that you just set up yourself, or Voltage. Any of them all support this, the sidecar tickets, as long as you're running, the right software. But you can create a channel into any node.
Right. And so when you get an inbound channel created to you, this is for a certain period of time, right? This is not necessarily forever. What is it, like a 2-week time interval? Or I think that actually was recently changed, right? You can now do longer.
Yeah, they just added, Lightning Labs just added new durations. There's a 2-week duration, I think. There's like 4 durations. It's like a 2-week, maybe 2-month, like 6 months and a year or something like that. So there are specific durations that you're purchasing the channel for.
And this for someone who has a successful node and has a lot of channels already, for someone who is in that position, they can then earn another source of income beyond just routing fee, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, if you had a fairly well-established node, you can start selling liquidity through Pool. So you could, just say, hey, I have an extra Bitcoin that is just kind of sitting around, and I'd love to earn some return on it. You could put it into Pool, and then open up channels where people would pay you for you opening up a channel to them. So yes, it's a great way to earn some additional revenue as well as routing. And then when that channel is open through Pool, you do get the routing fees from that channel as well. So it's a great kind of way to just earn some passive income, on the Lightning Network.
Do you have a sense for what that yield might look like? I know I've seen a few numbers that people have put out about what Pool's yield might be for certain channels and for certain durations, but I imagine that changes pretty rapidly over time, right? I don't know if do you have a sense for a good baseline metric, or what a standard yield might be, if there is one, on Pool?
Yeah, I don't think I have specific numbers on size of channel in comparison, but we've seen it hovering around about 30 to 35 BPS, and so I think that people have tried to extrapolate that out to APR, which is not kind of a 1-to-1, because this isn't something that you don't usually have the channel open for a year. It's much shorter duration, but I've seen the people that do try to extrapolate that out, it's about, I think, 4.5 to 5% APR, which is decent given that you are still in control of your funds, the whole time.
Yeah, and so that, if you were to extrapolate that and you had those 2-week time intervals, that would basically just be selling liquidity 26 different times throughout a year to 26, possibly 26 different participants, right?
Yes, yeah, and you can, when like the duration is up, you're not required to close the channel. Like you could keep it open for longer, but yes, I mean if you wanted to, okay, just go and sell it again, you could close the channel and just put up a new ask on pool, and then get matched with a new person and do the whole thing over again.
It seems like this is the biggest problem that anyone faces when they're first starting on Lightning. And you mentioned before, searching Telegram groups, trying to get inbound capacity. Why is this not a thing for every new node to get inbound capacity? Is that something you guys are thinking about, working on? Seems like that's a big constraint for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, I think that the challenging part is that there's so many different providers or ways to run nodes, so it's hard to come up with kind of a consistent solution across the board. But that's definitely something that we're looking at, and I think that that's something that Flow is kind of aimed to solve. Is that when you create a node on Voltage, I think soon we're going to be releasing it where you automatically get a channel open to you from Flow. So it does do exactly what you're saying of you don't have to go start searching on Telegram of who to open a channel to. It'll just be done automatically. And I think that the people like Umbrel and those other node solutions could do a similar thing where they just you just automatically get a channel when you spin up your Umbrel. So I think that those things will be getting solved over time. I think that goes along with what we talked about previously on more automation and ease of onboarding as we kind of progress through the network.
Yeah, and I guess that would be especially helpful for merchants who are receiving payments, and like you guys have a connection with BTC Pay Server. Maybe you can talk a bit more about how that works and like what problems you're trying to solve specifically for merchants that are receiving payments.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do have like BTC Pay Server hosting, so if someone does want to accept payments for their store or something like that, we definitely do provide that. And that's, as you're right, that Flow is kind of a great product for them to get just inbound capacity so people can pay to their store. It's again like if you didn't do that, you have to really find, even then, if searching Telegram and stuff like that, you have to convince people to open up channels to you, which is even more hard than figuring out what nodes do I open up channels from my side to their side. They need to open up from their side to my side to have that inbound capacity. And so that's an even bigger hurdle to convince people of, hey, I just set up my brand new node. You should open up a channel with me, which people are pretty adverse to for the most part. So it really helps with that, where you can just go to Flow instead, enter in how much you want, and submit your order, and then you have a channel open to you. And you can do that 3-4 times and have 3 or 4 good inbound channels from different places on the network, and then you can start accepting payments. It makes the whole onboarding process for merchants way easier.
Do you ever hear from merchants that they're worried about like the price volatility of Bitcoin? Do you think that there's like I've heard a lot of people talk about stablecoins on Lightning and moving that into the Lightning space. Do you think that is a constraint as well for merchants, that if they're maybe not necessarily wanting to take on Bitcoin's volatility, they're just trying to receive a payment? Do you think that would help to have kind of a stable option for them?
I think it could help. I think that there's solutions like OpenNode and things like that that are custodial, but they do offer kind of that automatic conversion. I think for those that want it, a lot of the people that come to us are the people that are big believers in Bitcoin, and they actually probably want to hold Bitcoin. They don't want to convert it. So that's really the more of the customer base that we see is the people that do not want to convert it. So I think that it just kind of depends on the person and what they want and what their business needs are. And so there are some solutions to do the conversion, but I think that to your point about stablecoins and things like that, I think that that's going to be easier over time as we do more integrations or new technology on Lightning to easily do the conversion in and out of channels, in and out of fiat, things like that.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the developments in Lightning specifically that you're most excited about right now? Could be industry wide, doesn't have to be Voltage specific.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that it's great to see like the podcasting 2.0 stuff happening. That's been happening for a little while now, but it's still increasing, which is great to see. I mean, things like the Fountain podcast app. I talk with Oscar quite a bit. Things like that are just great to see that continuing to evolve. It's always kind of disheartening when you see something come out and then it just like falls to the wayside where it's not used anymore. That was a cool idea. It's great to see the sustained usage of the value for value model in podcasting. So that's great. And then I love to see a lot of these newer services that are incorporating Lightning, like Stacker News. There's like the Wave Lake, I think is like a music streaming service on Lightning, and then there's a new like crowdfunding platform that's being worked on through Lightning. So really, I think that's kind of our immediate path forward with Lightning, is taking some fairly standard Web 2 things and adding Lightning into it to make it a better experience and make it more directly peer-to-peer. I think that's going to be a big winner, in the short term. And then, maybe we can add in a lot of these other things on top of Lightning of, the more far out goals, down the road. So I'm really excited about those things that are recreating what is historically been in like Web 2 riddled with just, ads or data collection. That's the only way that they monetize. And just figuring out that, okay, if we just incorporate Lightning, we don't have to steal data or, run ads and things like that. We can have people pay for the services that they're using, and these people are willing to pay. They want to contribute, to these services. And I think that's what I'm most excited about, is just really enabling the value for value model, and whatever it is, whether it's social media or podcasting, anything, just enabling that direct peer-to-peer connection is, that's just really exciting for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really cool to watch. Like I'm active on both Fountain and Stacker News, and basically every day I'm getting payments in for something or another, whether it's messages or boosts for podcast, whether it's like upvote, sats for an upvote or something on Stacker News. It's really cool to see. They're small amounts, but it's very promising to see all the activity, and just it seems like it is picking up steam for sure.
And I'll just say, I think that's another great point about it, is that you as a content creator, someone that's, even if you just wrote a post for Stacker News, you get some payment. Like every upvote sends you a little payment. It's maybe not much in a single payment, but it's great to see that, okay, we can actually interact in a new way, and you can get paid just by interacting with the site, which is it's just a kind of a crazy idea that is working.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because this week, I think I posted 2 different things on Stacker News, and I also posted them on Twitter. One was, I think it was when the 7% inflation number came out. I posted on Twitter and I posted on Stacker News, and I think I got 40 likes on Twitter, and I got about 40 sats on Stacker News. And so it got me thinking, it's a small amount, but what happens if 1 like equals 1 sat? If people start ingraining that in their head, that you can create really good stuff, and if it gets viewed by a lot of people and everyone chips in 1 sat, which is already happening in a small use case today for me, it's you can start to see how that adds up, right? Someone who who goes viral on Twitter and gets 100,000 likes, it will now have 100,000 sats. I think there's definitely room to scale that up, and obviously, of course, as the value of sats goes up over time too, it compounds. It just becomes an easier sell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you mentioned Web 2 a couple times. I want to hear your take on Web 3. Is this something that is going to be built on Bitcoin? Is Web 3, in your view, an extension of Web 2 with Lightning integrated? Do you like the Web 3 term? I would love to hear more your expanded thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really care about the terms. I mean, it's kind of I'm one of those people. It's everyone else can figure out what terms you want to use. I think we're thinking about it in a similar way. I think that the problem with the Web3 term is it's historically been associated with Ethereum and all of those things about how they're going to reinvent the internet in their way. which I think I'm of the opinion that their way is incorrect. That it's just a central database. It's just a different central database than Google's. It's just Solana's or whatever it is. So I'm kind of that opinion. I do think that the Web3, if you want to call it that or whatever, is it will be built on top of Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. I think that it will be. I think that it's going to be a gradual, shift where a lot of the Web 2 things start incorporating Lightning and adding Lightning, into it in one way or the other, and then I think that we can, go. That'll gradually shift into more of a true Web 3 where things are really, entirely peer to peer. There's no central authority of any of the things. So I think that it'll be a gradual shift, and we'll start with Web 2 integrating it, which is what we see in what we just mentioned of Stacker News and things like that. So I think that's kind of the way that we're going. And the reason why I think like that is that I've talked with a lot of people about this, and they people that are not necessarily Bitcoiners by any means, but they're still stuck in the mind of Bitcoin is limited in its transactional capacity, or it's expensive, or it can't scale, it can't do smart contracts or things like this. And once you just kind of explain to them that you can do a lot of these things that you're talking about just on Lightning or through this other thing that maybe even it hasn't been released yet, but it's still possible one day. And once you kind of open that door to them starting to think like, okay, well then maybe Bitcoin is more usable than I thought, is a better thing that can build out whatever the solution or the problem is. I think that it really opens up the door to where they start to really critically think like, oh, maybe Bitcoin is the answer. So I think that what it comes down to, what I'm trying to say here is I think it's still just a lot of misinformation that like Bitcoin can't do X, Y, and Z. That Bitcoin is slow. That Bitcoin does all of these things. And if that's false, and you can do all of these things on top of Bitcoin, why would you not do it on Bitcoin? Why would you not do it on the best, the most secure network in the world? So I think that, over time, that's just going to flesh itself out as we do more education and people see what's possible. So that's kind of why I think that a lot of this new Web3 stuff will be built on Bitcoin, because if it's possible, why wouldn't you do that?
Yes, 100% agree with that. Do you have any missing pieces that you think need to be built for this ecosystem in order to get that Web3 vision or that next iteration of the internet? Like one of the things that I came across recently, I think it's still being worked on, but I saw like a teaser tweet from Impervious. I believe they're working on like a browser, like a peer-to-peer browser with Lightning payments built in. Like it's just purely Lightning, a browser for Lightning. I was like, that's really cool. Albi is doing a kind of MetaMask style browser extension. That's really cool. It feels like those are kind of building blocks that help get to that next version of the internet. Do you see any like screaming obvious things that need to be built that are not in place yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think I maybe mentioned some at the beginning of the interview, but things like just better tooling for people to build with. So whether it's just more standard APIs, better observability into like your node and your operations, or liquidity management. So there's a few things that could definitely be enhanced to make it. Some of those are not necessarily requirements, but they're nice to haves. But really, when you think about, okay, if we are trying to attract all of these people to come build on Lightning and start developing on Lightning, well, we got to have the tools in place for them to use and develop easily. And I think that we're still on the early days of that. And that's something that we're trying to focus on, is really enabling this next wave of developers that are building on Lightning, and how are we going to enable them? If they come to the Lightning Network and we have to say, okay, you have to set up your node and you have to make sure you're watching your channel backup file, and then you have to open up your channels to all these places, and then you have to monitor them, and you have to learn like this gRPC API. It's like they're just going to get overwhelmed and say, no, forget it, I'm not going to do this. And so really being able to simplify the process as much as possible and giving them a simple and standard interface where they can start developing and then just start incorporating it into their apps. I think is like the biggest hurdle that we'll be accomplishing as as the next phase of Lightning pans out.
Right. Okay, I got two more questions for you. Quick rapid fire ones here.
Yeah.
What's your favorite application on Lightning today outside of Voltage?
Favorite application on Lightning. So I've been a big fan. There's a lot, but I'll say Zeus. I'm a big fan of Zeus, and really that maybe is like not all that crazy of one, but really for like I'm an iPhone user, and there's like Zap died as far as I know, and so there's not really a good wallet besides Zeus that lets you interface with your node to send and receive. And to me, that's like absolutely critical for us, as the Lightning Network progresses, is a good app that lets you interface with your node remotely. And so I've been super bullish on Zeus lately, and especially they just redesigned the whole thing. It's getting really, really good. So kudos to Evan for working on that. So I'm super bullish on Zeus. I'm trying to think. Another one I'm really excited about is Amboss. I mean, I really like Amboss. I think they have a great product, and it's really coming along very well. And it's their UI is just great, and they get a lot of good data. So I'll stop there. There's a huge list that I could just start rambling for a long time, but we'll leave it at those.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree that Lightning has to kind of, Lightning is a more mobile experience already with like QR scanning and the fact that it's, you're probably not putting in your life savings onto your Lightning wallet. It's a hot wallet. It's mobile first already. And I think, tools to make that easier for a node to talk to your phone, I think that'd be much, that's much needed. And then final question for you in, let's say the year 2025, how many Lightning Network nodes will there be?
2025. So it's only like 3 years. What are we at now? Like 18,000 ish or something?
I think there's almost it's 19,300 active nodes. Okay. So that's nodes with a channel. Let's use that as the metric.
I'm gonna say north of 100,000.
Interesting.
Okay. And maybe I don't know if that's bearish or bullish. But I'm going to say north of 100,000 because that's that's a pretty good progression over the years. And I think that it will be easier and easier to run a node and have your own identity on the network. So I'm gonna say 100,000. What do you think? What's your take on that?
I like that prediction. See, when you were talking about how you thought capacity was going to grow faster than nodes, I was thinking in my head that I'm not sure about that. Part of me was thinking that nodes might grow faster just because if the velocity of payments increases, then you almost don't need as much capacity. But it was interesting to hear your take on it. I don't know. I say, 100,000 seems pretty reasonable. If I had to pick over or under on 100,000 nodes, I would pick over though. That's as well.
I think I would too. I'm even thinking through it. I'm feeling a little bearish on the 100,000, but I'll stick with it. But yeah, I think that's a good number. And we'll see. I mean, I think that's the great thing about this is it's kind of being built out right before our eyes, and we can see a lot of these details about how it's progressing. And I think that's super exciting as we watch it grow over the years. Yeah.
And I mean, some of these growth spurts, to be fair, they do come in like massive waves. Like we saw one 6 or 12 months ago with, El Salvador coming on board. It just like everything skyrocketed for a few months. It now seems a little more pedestrian in comparison. Everything's still growing, but it seems like there was another wave a few years back. It seems like when growth happens, it really happens. And it's like unlocking Lightning for a whole new segment of the population. So I guess it's tricky to time that, but I like that prediction regardless.
Yeah. Good.
Where can people go to find more about Voltage and about you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on Twitter. You can find me at GKRIZEK. Voltage is voltage.cloud. Twitter is voltage_cloud. So check us out. Just play around with the platform or Flow. Or if you just want to learn more about Lightning or anything like that, like just hit us up. We're always looking to educate the best we can and help people get on board. So even if you don't want to run a node yet, just hit us up and we'd be happy to point you in whatever direction you need to go in.
Awesome. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for being the first sponsor of the show. That's huge.
Yeah, I'm glad we could do it. I'm glad we could. I mean, I love your show. Love what you're got going on here. So we are very excited to be able to sponsor.
Awesome. Well, I hope listeners enjoy this episode, and we'll have lots more interesting content for them coming right up. But yeah, thank you for taking the time. Enjoyed this show, and hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Lightning Round presented by Voltage. Voltage is the industry-leading provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Many of your favorite Bitcoin and Lightning apps already use Voltage to manage their business quickly and easily without any maintenance. Voltage also offers a product called Flow. Flow is a inbound liquidity product helping you as a node operator get inbound liquidity quickly and easily. Overall, Voltage is creating the industry standard suite of non-custodial products, helping brands and engineers and startups scale. If you want to learn more about them, you can check them out at voltage.cloud. Now it's time to get into the lightning round. And today we have 3 messages that came in since the last episode. At Mud to Monarch on Fountain says, dope, in response to episode 1 with Oscar Mary. That was a great episode. It's still one of the most popular episodes of the show so far. Highly recommend it if you have not seen episode 1. It's all about lightning podcasting. Bobby sent in a couple sats and says, what's up, Kevin? It's Bobby. Excited to listen to this one. I invested $1K into Scarce City. Pump my bags? Consider your bags pumped, Bobby. We had a great episode last week with Scarce City. Chris Tremount, great guest, and I learned a ton from him. We also got in a message from Peter, who was not super excited about last week's show. He says, wow, NFT digital collectibles seem like such a huge scam. This guest comes off like a get-rich-quick sleazeball. Yikes. Tell us how you really feel, Peter. I get the frustration, and I think there's a lot of nuance here in the NFT discussion. Overall, I don't agree. I think that the NFT movement is not going to be stopped. I think this is here to stay. NFTs in some capacity, whether they live on Ethereum or Bitcoin or Solana or whatever, is up for debate. I think it's going to live on Bitcoin, and I think Scarce City is pushing in that direction, and I think they're building that future. So I'm excited to see what they build. I think there's going to be room in the future for digital collectibles. I don't think that's up for debate. And I think it makes sense that it lives on Bitcoin. So excited to see what they build. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. If you have any other questions about the show, fire them off. Send me a message on Fountain or your favorite Lightning podcasting app. And can't wait to read all of your questions and comments next week.